When I was at Pierre, there was only Pierre, Caprice, Gavroche, and the Square with 2 stars. It's 4 2-stars, and then Gordon was 3. And now there's what, 12 or 13 2-stars? So I was 20 years old when I arrived in London. I just did an apprenticeship like all Australian chefs, and growing up in Perth, Western Australia in the 1980s, majority of my senior staff, well, employees were either Brits or French. And they romanticised about the professional kitchens in Europe, and the tall white hats, the Dorchester, the Savoys, all these great hotels with these great European chefs. So I wanted to see that for myself. So I got a working holiday visa and went to London, and landed with no job. I went to a catering agency, and they put me out with a chef that had been one of Marco Pierre White's burnouts. He'd worked at Harvey's for about 6 months and had opened a restaurant in Essex, a guy called Paul. And that was a really good introduction. It was a three rosette restaurant, cooking great food, making the bread every day, everything in-house. And so that was a real learning curve for me. And Paul arranged for us a booking at Harvey's. So this was 1990, 91. So we went to Harvey's for my birthday. Me and 2 other friends, and I remember we had to book 2 months ahead. So that meal really flicked the switch for me, and it put me on the path to where I am now, because I saw what you could achieve as a chef. Eating in a 2-star Michelin restaurant with someone like Marco Pierre White was just, it blew my mind to the possibilities. So then after that I worked for Marcus Waring and Gordon. Gordon had opened Aubergine, and the second restaurant they'd opened was called L'Oranger. And I joined there as a chef de partie in 1995. And then I worked there for just under a year, and then after that I went to work for Phil Howard at the Square for a couple of years. After that I joined Pierre when Tom Aikens, and I was Tom Aikens' senior sous. And during my 2 years at Pierre, there was incidents that happened, and then old story, but Tom Aikens left under a bit of a cloud, and I was presented with the opportunity to take Pierre over, which I actually declined for about 4 weeks because I didn't want to go down that path. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't want to open anything in London. I was looking to do something outside London and built from the ground up. I didn't want to take over a restaurant, particularly of Pierre stature. But anyway, the board convinced me to take over, and then in January 2000 I took Pierre over. It was 1 star at that stage. It had lost its 2nd star. Regained the star in 2001, and then 2003 won 2 Michelin stars, which was a bit of a surprise to me, to be quite honest, because it was not something I was aiming for. All I wanted to do was cook great food and just enjoy the job. And then, that was great because we became the first Australian to win 1 and 2 Michelin stars. And the restaurant went from strength to strength. It burned down. The restaurant burned down in 2004. We closed for just under a year, refurbished, reopened, spent another 5 happy years there, but then I started to become a bit disillusioned about working in that type of restaurant, and I wanted a change. My wife and I wanted to kind of move out of London. Australians are, nomadic people in a way, and so I sold my shares in the businesses, sold our house, and we went traveling for a year, and we decided to kind of move to Asia. So we were looking at either Hong Kong or Singapore. And Alan Yao had opened a business here, Alan Yao of Hakkasan fame. So I joined them as kind of like a consultant chef to help them through a business that was not performing as well as it should have. So helped him on that project for 2 years. And then during that 2 years, I met my current business partner here, who used to be a regular of mine at Pierre. And we kind of came up with the idea of launching Arcane. And Arcane was kind of the restaurant that had always been in the back of my mind of the restaurant that I really wanted to open. More a la carte, going back to the basics of hospitality. It's about atmosphere. We do offer a tasting menu, but we focus on the a la carte. The lunch menu changes once a week, twice a week. We have specials, and it's a restaurant where people just come in and just relax.
Sustainability quite important?
It is across the board. I mean, what we always try and look at things about sourcing best possible ingredients we can with sustainability, whether it's organic or whether it's sustainably farmed seafood, or if it's meat, then we're talking to producers that don't use antibiotics or growth hormones. So the Wagyu we use from Australia is from a farm called Mayura. They do everything on the farm. So that's part of the conversation we try and have with all our staff, because it's our job as leaders of the industry to kind of set the example and just have that healthy conversation that we all need to do our best to reduce our carbon footprint. We have 3 restaurants. Arcane's kind of the flagship with the 1-star. Cornerstone, which is a big gourmand, is run by the chef Neil Ledesma. He's worked for me pretty much since I came to Hong Kong, so 11 years. And he's an incredibly talented chef with a Filipino background, and he's going on a journey of discovering his own cooking styles at the moment. And so we gave him an understanding of modern European cuisine, and now there are local influences and Filipino influences that are creeping onto his dishes, which is great to see that development. And then the 3rd restaurant's called Moxie. Moxie's run by Michael Smith, who was the previous chef de cuisine here. He's English background. So Michael's food is predominantly vegetarian, plant-based, and sustainable seafood. So he's going on a journey of, where we should all be in the industry of, supporting sustainable food practices. Okay, so Sebastian and I are making tortellini. So we always have pasta on the lunch menu. So this is pasta with homemade ricotta, garlic, pepper. We also have a potato and truffle ravioli on the a la carte dish. So pasta's made fresh every day. And people in Asia, people love pasta. Noodles, pasta is always a big seller. Pasta always brings back memories of being a kid and having Play-Doh. My kids love making pasta. From a very early age, they used to love coming into the kitchens. Now they're teenagers, they don't want to be in the kitchen anymore. But one of those things that children always love making was pasta.